Remember how many times you postponed the necessary work, and how often you've let the opportunity to act slip by, as though the gods had set a certain time for you to act, and yet you neglected it. It's time for you to recognize the true nature of both the universe, of which you are a part, and the Lord who governs it, from whom you flow. Like a stream from a source, there is a limited window for you to calm the disturbances within your soul, and if you don't seize it, time will pass, carrying you along with it, never to return. Make it your constant and earnest endeavor, as both a Roman and a human being, to perform every action with sincerity, affection, freedom, and justice. Cast away all other worries, and free your mind from distractions. You will succeed in this if you approach each action as though it were your last, devoid of vanity, free from irrational impulses, and without any trace of hypocrisy, self-interest, or discontent over what fate or the divine order has brought your way. You see that the essentials for living a virtuous life and following a divine course are few, and the gods will demand no more from any person than these principles. Go ahead, soul. Continue to mistreat and neglect yourself. But soon, your time for self-respect will come to an end. Every person's happiness depends solely on themselves. Yet here you are, nearing the end of your life, placing your happiness in the thoughts and opinions of others. Why should external events trouble you so much? Give yourself the space to learn something of value and stop wandering aimlessly. You must also guard against another type of wandering. Those who toil and labor without a clear goal are as idle as those who sit still, for they direct their actions toward nothing of substance. It's rare for someone to be truly unhappy just by not observing another person's soul, however. Tell those who don't guide their actions by reason and wisdom that they must inevitably find unhappiness. Always keep these things in mind: the nature of the universe and your own nature, understanding how one relates to the other. You are a part of the whole, and nothing prevents you from always acting and speaking in accordance with the nature of the universe, of which you are a part. Theophrastus rightly says, when comparing one sin to another, that those committed through lust are worse than those committed through anger. Anger involves a kind of pain and contraction of the self, turning away from reason. But lust overcomes reason through pleasure. The philosopher wisely argues that the one who sins through pleasure is more to be condemned than the one who sins through anger. The latter may feel wronged and act out of a kind of forced reaction, while the former willingly chooses their indulgence. Whatever you set your heart on, and whatever you plan to do, act as though this moment could be your last. As for death, if the gods exist, it's no misfortune to leave the company of men, for the gods will do you no harm. And if there are no gods, or if they are indifferent to humanity, why would I wish to live in a world devoid of divine providence? But the gods do exist, and they care for the world. As for true evils, like vice and wickedness, they've placed those within a man's control so he can avoid them if he chooses. If there were anything else truly bad, they would have ensured we could escape it as well. Why should we fear things that can't make us better or worse as human beings? And we must not assume that the universe, either through ignorance or lack of power, has allowed such things to happen to both the good and the bad alike. Reflect on how quickly everything dissolves and disintegrates, bodies back into the physical elements and memories into the currents of time. Consider the fleeting nature of those things that either seduce us with pleasure, terrify us with discomfort, or dazzle us with their allure. All such things are trivial, corruptible, and lack any real substance. It is the part of an intelligent person to consider those from whom we seek honor and recognition. What do they really understand? What value do their opinions hold? Likewise, consider death itself. stripped of all the terrifying associations we usually attach to it. Death is nothing more than a natural process, and fearing it is as childish as fearing the change of seasons. Nature itself dictates death, and if nature brings it, it must be good. Think about how humans connect with the divine, and how that connection influences our soul, the soul that obsesses over trivial matters, searching even the depths of others' thoughts, while ignoring the duty to tend to its own inner spirit, is the most miserable of all. Our duty is to maintain the purity of our soul, free from violent passions, falsehood, rash judgments, and discontent. Everything that comes from the gods deserves reverence, and everything from other people who are our kin should be met with love or, at times, compassionate understanding of their ignorance of true good and evil. Whether you live for 3,000 years or only for a few more, remember this: you can only part with the present moment when you die. The time that is past or the future that hasn't yet arrived doesn't belong to you. Life, no matter how long or short, leads to the same end for everyone. What truly matters is how you use the time you have right now, for that's the only part of life you can lose. Reflect on this and know that the duration of your life, whether long or short, is ultimately insignificant compared to how you live in the present. Remember that much of what troubles us is simply a matter of opinion. Monimus, the cynic, had it right when he said that everything we believe is subjective, and recognizing this truth can offer great relief if we accept what's real over what merely pleases our senses. The soul harms itself in several ways. First, when it disconnects from the natural order of the universe and complains about what happens. Second, when it acts out of ill will or seeks to harm others. Third, when it is overcome by pleasure or pain. Fourth, when it becomes deceitful, either in word or action. Finally, when it acts without purpose, carelessly or thoughtlessly, without considering the consequences of its actions. Every action must be aligned with reason, which serves the greater common good. Life is fleeting, a point in time. The body is ever-changing and headed toward decay. The soul is restless, fortune uncertain, and fame short-lived. In the end, life is a pilgrimage, and fame after death is little more than oblivion. What remains? Only philosophy, by which I mean preserving the purity of your inner self from all external distractions, living according to your principles, accepting whatever happens with grace, and welcoming death as a natural resolution of your elements. If the elements themselves don't fear transformation, why should we fear death? After all, nothing that aligns with nature can truly be evil.